Intrusive thoughts. Almost everyone has experienced them, and most people feel a flash of guilt or confusion when they do. These are the sudden, unwanted ideas that pop into your mind without warning, often violent, embarrassing, or completely out of character. You might be standing at the edge of a platform and suddenly think about jumping, even though you have no desire to. A parent might hold their newborn and briefly imagine dropping them. These thoughts are not signs of danger or hidden desires. They are a normal function of the brain, which constantly generates possibilities, including unlikely or disturbing ones. The brain is not judging, it is running simulations. The thought passes, and most people move on. The problem comes when someone latches onto the thought and starts to wonder what it means about them. That anxiety is what gives the thought power. In themselves, intrusive thoughts are harmless electrical noise. Mind wandering. Your brain drifts away from whatever you are doing and begins traveling somewhere entirely different, often without you even noticing. You sit down to read a page and realize 3 minutes later that your eyes moved across every line, but your mind was replaying a conversation from 2 weeks ago. Research from Harvard found that people spend roughly 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they are actually doing. That is nearly half of conscious life spent somewhere other than the present moment. Mind wandering is linked to the default mode network, a set of brain regions that activate when you are not focused on an external task. Some scientists believe this is the brain doing essential background work, processing memories, imagining future scenarios, and making sense of social experiences. It feels idle, but it rarely is. Earworms. A song gets stuck in your head and plays on a loop for hours, sometimes days, and there is seemingly nothing you can do to stop it. The term earworm comes from the German word Ohrwurm, and it describes the involuntary musical imagery that takes hold of the brain without invitation. Studies suggest that around 90% of people experience earworms at least once a week. Songs with simple, repetitive melodic patterns are the most common culprits, which is why commercial jingles and pop hooks are engineered the way they are. The brain, it appears, craves completion. When a melody feels unresolved, or when you only heard part of a song, the auditory cortex keeps replaying it in an attempt to finish the loop. One way to stop an earworm is to listen to the song all the way through, which gives the brain the resolution it is looking for. Deja vu. You walk into a restaurant you have never visited before and feel with complete certainty that you have been there. The conversation feels familiar. The way the light falls through the window feels like a memory. And yet, you know logically that this is impossible. Deja vu, French for already seen, is one of the most studied and still least understood experiences in neuroscience. One leading theory suggests it happens when the brain's memory recognition system fires without the accompanying retrieval process. In other words, the brain sends a familiarity signal without being able to attach it to an actual memory, which creates that strange sensation of false recognition. It happens most often in people between 15 and 25 years of age and tends to decrease with time. Stress and fatigue can make it more frequent. Interestingly, people with temporal lobe epilepsy often experience deja vu just before a seizure, which helped researchers identify which parts of the brain are involved. Hypnic jerks. You are lying in bed, almost asleep, and suddenly your body jolts awake as if you just missed a step on a staircase. Your heart jumps, maybe your legs kicked, and now you are wide awake again, a little disoriented. This is called a hypnic jerk, and it happens to most people regularly, though some experience it more intensely than others. One theory traces it back to our evolutionary past. As our ancestors slept in trees, the brain may have misread the relaxation of muscles during sleep as the body beginning to fall and responded with a sudden contraction to catch itself. The brain essentially startled the body awake as a survival reflex. Whether or not that explanation is fully accurate, hypnic jerks are harmless and extremely common. They are more likely to happen when you are overtired, stressed, or have consumed caffeine late in the day. The tip of the tongue phenomenon. You know the word. You can feel the shape of it, sense how many syllables it has, almost hear the first sound, but it will not come. You reach for it, and it slips further away. The tip of the tongue state, often abbreviated as TOT by researchers, is a breakdown in the retrieval process where the brain can access partial information about a word but cannot fully pull it to the surface. It tends to happen more often with proper nouns, names of people, and words that are used infrequently. Interestingly, thinking harder often makes it worse. The word is more likely to surface when you stop trying and let your attention drift, because the indirect route through memory sometimes works better than direct effort. As people age, tip of the tongue moments become more frequent, though they are not necessarily a sign of cognitive decline. Spontaneous imagination. You are doing something completely routine, washing dishes or walking to the mailbox, and your mind suddenly generates a vivid and completely unprompted scenario. Maybe you imagine yourself giving a speech, or picture a version of your life that never happened, or construct an entire conversation that will probably never take place. This kind of spontaneous creative thinking is one of the brain's most remarkable features. It is not random noise. It is the mind rehearsing, problem solving, and exploring possibilities in the background. Writers, inventors, and musicians have long described breakthrough ideas arriving in this way during a shower, during a walk, during a sleepless night. Albert Einstein reportedly developed early versions of his thought experiments through exactly this kind of unprompted imagining. The brain is always writing stories, even when no one asks it to. Emotional flashbacks. Something small, a smell, a sound, a particular quality of afternoon light suddenly pulls you back to a moment from the past so vividly that the feeling returns as if no time has passed at all. Not just the memory, but the emotion attached to it. This happens because the brain stores memories not only as information, but as sensory and emotional packages. The amygdala, which processes emotion, is closely linked to the hippocampus, which handles memory. When a sensory trigger activates one, it can activate the other almost instantly. This is why the smell of something baking can return you to your grandmother's kitchen with an emotional weight that surprises you. It is also why trauma can be reactivated so powerfully by seemingly unrelated triggers. The emotional part of the memory arrives faster than the cognitive explanation for it. Racing thoughts. Your mind accelerates late at night or during a quiet moment and begins moving through ideas, worries, memories, and imagined scenarios so quickly that it feels almost impossible to slow down. One thought leads to another and another, often without logical connection, building into something that feels loud even in silence. Racing thoughts are most commonly associated with anxiety and with certain mood states, but they happen to people without any diagnosis at all, particularly when they are under stress or when the distractions of the day fall away. The absence of external input at night removes the mental noise that usually competes for attention during the day, and so internal thoughts suddenly feel louder and faster. Writing thoughts down before bed is one of the most consistently recommended strategies. Not to solve anything, but to give the mind permission to release what it has been holding. The internal monologue. There is a voice in your head right now reading these words. It may sound like your own voice or a version of it. Some people have a near constant internal narrator commenting on their experiences, replaying conversations, planning ahead, or simply describing what is happening. Others report very little inner speech and instead think more in images, feelings, or abstract impressions. Research by psychologist Russell Hurlburt, who pioneered a method called descriptive experience sampling, found that inner speech varies dramatically from person to person, and that many people are surprised to discover not everyone thinks the way they do. The internal monologue is thought to develop in childhood from the process of talking to oneself out loud, which gradually becomes internalized. It appears to play a role in self-regulation, planning, and even in how we process and understand our own emotions. It is, in many ways, the ongoing conversation you are always having with yourself, whether you notice it or not.